With regards to social justice, I naturally have gravitated towards implementing that aspect of creativity into my practice. One of the first ever social justice pieces that I composed was way back in 2004, 2005, and it concerned death in the war in Iraq. I had come across this article on the internet that basically said the amount of reported deaths in the war in Iraq is much lower than the amount of actual death in this war. And amazingly enough, sadly enough, in 2020, actually, even today, when we see the numbers of the amount of people officially reported to have passed away because of coronavirus, it is most likely extremely low compared to the actual numbers of people who have died because of coronavirus. So, in a weird way, that very first social justice piece that I ever composed has come around to the events that started in 2020 and are unfortunately still continuing. However, it's super important in my practice that I use my platform to talk about various different issues, such as the power of women, immigration, of course, matters related to Black life in the United States and around the world, and transgender issues, access issues in terms of ableism. All sorts of issues can be discussed and examined in a composition. But first and foremost, as a social justice artist, when I go about creating a piece of social justice music, I want my audiences to think about the issues that are being presented to them. And hopefully my pieces will help people go home from that experience and do some more research, do some more reading, perhaps do some more talking with their friends and family, and then be an agent of change. On Top of a Frosted Hill is one of the most personal pieces that I composed. I had the pleasure of living in Boulder, Colorado for almost 5 years of my life. And I remember the first time that I climbed the foothills up to the Royal Arch, which is a path that starts in Boulder. I remember coming across this feeling of grandeur and just marveling at the beautiful sights and the smells and the quality of the air and all of the wonderful things that are associated with doing this hike. And oddly enough, I didn't compose On Top of a Frosted Hill when I was in Colorado. I composed it when I was in the Netherlands in a summer trip because at that time I spent summers in the Netherlands and then returned to Colorado. Now, also at that time, I was in a cello piano duo with my wonderful friend, Matthew Dordenay, and we, of course, were looking for repertoire, and of course, I wanted to compose a piece for him. I had been wanting to compose a piece for him for quite a while, so it was great to get the opportunity to do this. And I remember sitting at the piano, thinking about Boulder, and then all of a sudden, this icy, slow, cold, serene music just started to come out of me and that turned into On Top of a Frosted Hill. In terms of a favorite instrumentation, I do have to say I am very much so a fan of the original cello piano instrumentation. That's how the piece was conceived, and that's still where my heart lies. But I have to say, for all of the people who have performed the piece, they have all done such a wonderful job with the piece and pour their hearts and souls and their top musicianship within this piece. So I'm really just happy when anybody plays it and gives it that special something from within themselves to make the piece come alive. It is now 2021, and last year, the world literally changed. And that change, we can say that it was a horrible change, or we can accept reality. We can recognize what the world is right now and make changes within ourselves to survive and thrive. It is our duty as artists to not wallow in the suffering and the daggers that life throws at us. It is our duty as artists to continue to make this world a better place. One of the best Toni Morrison moments is when she said, in times where the world is low, that's when artists get to work, right? The world right now is in a pretty low place, and this is the time for artists to get to work. So if I were to impart any information on the current society, community of living artists, especially living musicians and composers, I just want to tell you all that the box is destroyed, right? The box does not exist anymore. That model that we were so accustomed to from March and before 2020, that's gone. It's completely gone. And we shouldn't pretend that it still exists because it does not exist anymore. And as soon as we accept that the box is gone, that's when we can allow ourselves to actually live outside of the box. I like to say that a part of me has been living outside of the box throughout my all of my career, not necessarily out of choice, but now we are all living outside of that box. So what are you going to do with that information?